So you're getting ready to watch or read JJK, and you get to the iconic Shibuya incident arc, an arc put up there with one of the greatest shonen arcs of all time. Well, how do we kick off the actual incident that takes place in Shibuya? By pitting the strongest sorcerer in the series versus the main antagonistic group in a battle that will literally spell the fate of Japan depending on who the victor is. Satoru Gojo versus the disaster curses. With the civilians trapped under Shibuya Station B5F and the sorcerers barred from entering B5F due to a barrier being put up by the enemy curses, there's only one man allowed to enter what most will look like as an execution zone. Satoru Gojo, special grade sorcerer going into the basement of Shibuya to combat two special grade disaster curses and the cursed death on Peyton Choso, who really doesn't play a role in this fight for the most part. He does launch a couple blood attacks towards Gojo, but not actively trying to stop him. After all, he's only got one thing in mind when he first initially comes here and partners up with Geto and Mahito. The interest of Gojo alone is subtle but blunt at the same time, with civilians asking where is Gojo, something the enemy told them to say as non-sorcerers should know who Satoru Gojo is, which we also get a little bit more of that statement in later arcs. Gojo emerges from the curtain and steps and skips over the crowd of people in Shibuya with the assistance of Infinity and descends down into B5F. This entrance always gave me a vibe of Gojo feeling like a higher being compared to anyone, whether it's a sorcerer or a non-sorcerer. And I feel like part of Gege might have been going for an approach like that, especially if you're a regular civilian down in that basement. It ended up looking like hell anyways. The Curse family had a plan set in motion with assistance from Geto to seal Gojo, and a majority of the plan requires time, something Jogo, Hanami, and Choso can easily provide. And from the words of Geto, when Gojo is in his element the most is when he's alone. In this instance, the curses will bring a ton of civilians down to the basement to force Gojo to not only worry about himself, but the actual people of Japan, pushing Gojo's humanity against them, leaving him to the limit the full capabilities of what he can actually do. Not to mention Gojo's ability with blue, red, hollow, purple. There's so much of area effect that there's no way he can try to protect them while using his techniques at the same time. Now Jogo and Hanami just have to buy time for Geto and just stay down there with Gojo for 20 minutes to be exact. And oh boy did Gojo terrorize these poor bastards. In the meantime, Jogo, Hanami, and Choso decided it was time to execute plan A, which is just mass slaughter. They decapitated, incinerated, unalived, diced up, whatever you really imagine to these civilians. And that's the part about it is they actually couldn't even see them. The real fight starts when Jogo and Hanami apply domain amplification, which, long story short, if you need a refresher, it's the opposite of a simple domain that neutralizes the technique inside domain expansion. Domain amplification, we simply just neutralize the curse technique, but can't use any curse techniques themselves while doing it, which at least they have a way to defend themselves. They even agreed on no running, although I'm afraid that side of the deal doesn't last that long. But Gojo doesn't give a damn what they're talking about, looking at Jogo with the meanest glare he's ever given someone. After Jogo just asks a simple question of, are you making excuses? You should be able to fight the shit the strongest. He just simply tells Jogo, nah, Baldy, I'm surprised you thought you could beat me using your sorry excuse for a brain. And lets Hanami know I'm coming from Mother Nature first. This panel of Gojo stepping to Jogo and telling him, I thought you told me not to run, is tough. He literally looks like he's bullying them, which he kind of does in the end. They fight again and they try to double team attack, but Gojo blocks Jogo's strike and ducks Hanami's roundhouse kick, and at the same time breaks Jogo's arm. Meanwhile, this whole time, Gojo's curse technique, Limitless, is off. He's using his bare hands and curse energy. And just look at the fear he puts in Jogo, one of the strongest curse spirits in the entire series still to this day, and with just base power and energy, he's manhandling him. Hanami tried to jump in and that was a fatal mistake. It turned off its domain amplification, trying to use its curse technique. But the second Gojo saw this, it was game over. He jumps on her and pulls her weeded tree branched eyes out, since that's her weak spot. A weak spot he found out from Megami, who faced off against Hanami. Jogo and Hanami tried one last double team attack, but it was already too late. Gojo expanded his infinity and basically presses Hanami against the wall with just his curse energy, pummels her and exercises her. Finished. Finito. Hanami was never my favorite out of the disaster curses. Matter of fact, she's my least favorite, but in the Gojo arc, she's a perfect antagonist for us, a special grade, high durability, and she's here to just show us, the audience, how much it would take to try and exercise special grade curse when you're not a special grade sorcerer. And poor Jogo, you're in concept and execution a really cool character, but this is one of the few times I felt bad for the antagonist, as Jogo, albeit a plan of his, starts to run. He's running away from Gojo, who looks like a monster chasing him. So Hanami won't die in vain. He's using amplification. He's running and he's throwing people at Gojo. Meanwhile, everybody's just waiting for Mr. Ghetto to make his expected appearance. And then one of my favorite moments of this whole fight is the train scene. As Jogo runs and lures Gojo to the subway, a civilian waits for the subway doors to open and is greeted with a train full of transfigured humans that start to bite, eat, it looks like terrorize the trapped civilians, with best boy Mahito making his Shibuya debut facing off against Gojo for the first time. And to show the difference between the disaster curses, Jogo lets Mahito know Hanami has died, and seemingly Mahito doesn't really care in like a joyful type of way. Mahito in Gojo's short class was something I've always wanted to see while reading the manga, as Nanami has compared the two, as they both have this playful yet threatening approach to fighting, especially when they can overwhelm their opponent. Mahito, like all his opponents, cornered Gojo by bringing more humans down into the basement since Hanami's trees are gone now. Mahito and Choso double team Gojo with some of the strongest attacks, all while transfigured humans are pressing against his infinity at the same time. Jogo tried to sneak him, but failed yet again, although it kind of worked at the same time, pinning Gojo in a situation where he has no choice but to use his domain expansion, a technique that will affect anyone in range. The only problem is Gojo isn't that ruthless where he'd hurt the innocent just to reach a curse. Even Mahito knows Gojo is different from Yuji. He can be cold-hearted, but he doubts he would do something like this. Except Gojo said, "That's if I give a fuck," and launches an unlimited void to stun everybody. Except it's a 0.2 seconds unlimited void. Gojo did this as a gamble for non-sorcerers. They'll be in a daze, but they shouldn't suffer any lasting effects on their brain. All of the transfigured humans were annihilated in 299 seconds after the deactivation of the domain. This panel of Gojo looking exhausted is one of the best in the arc. The ultimate opportunist himself, Geto, finally emerges within the prison realm after this moment. The prison realm is really one of the only tools I kind of wanted a piece of lore on, simply who needed to be sealed inside the prison realm to begin with for this thing to really appear. It was funny reading the explanation of how the prison is activated. You need a 4-meter radius and 1 minute of time for it to lock onto Gojo. And that minute is 1 minute inside Gojo's brain. And time inside anyone's head moves faster than the actual time, especially with everything Gojo's got going on in his head. Before they heard that last bit of information, Jogo, Mahito, and Hanami thought, "Oh, this is some bullshit. He wants us to die." But that prison realm locked eyes with Gojo, and it was a wrap. It was over. The strongest was officially sealed. The moment right before the sealing of Gojo seeing Ghetto's body be manipulated and controlled by Brain-kun, who was his nickname for a little while, you just start to feel the anger coming from Gojo's face. The memories that started flooding from his mind. His 6 eyes was telling him it's Ghetto, but his soul knows that that's not Ghetto. He would never let anybody take over his body. This is Brain-kun, or which we'll later figure out, is Kenjaku. This is their first big move on panel in regards to their huge plan, belittling Yuta Okotu in the process, the prodigy everyone is enamored with, which was a nice memento of foreshadowing, and telling Gojo to have a good night. Let's meet again in the new world. Except Gojo had one last thing to say before officially being gone from the manga for approximately 3 years in real lifetime. We don't even know how, but as Brain-kun picks up the prison realm, it drops like a heavy pound of weights into the ground and breaks the ground. We can just assume limitless, but to anybody else, the reason is just because he's Gojo. The Honored One had let everyone know he has full faith in every sorcerer, especially his students. Now that Gojo's words live up to fruition,